Hey folks, Mark back with a vinyl update. This one for Record Store Day 2019. I know I'm a little behind. It's Tuesday. Seemed like everybody put their stuff up last weekend, but I just didn't get around to it. And also I did a little bit of Record Store Day continuation on Sunday. But yeah, I hope everybody found what they wanted. I know some people did, some people didn't. There is one thing that I forgot even was coming out, but I didn't even see it in my travels. It was an album by a shoegaze band called Chapter House from the early 90s, British UK band. And it was an album called The Original Whirlpool Recordings, and it was just, I'm assuming it was the demos before their first album. And that thing just wasn't around, and I've looked it up on Discogs and eBay, and boy, the flippers have already gone to town on that. It's a $75 album at best. So, if I come across it, I do. If I don't, then that's the way it is. But, with Record Store Day, to me, it's just fun going to the record stores. I really like to feel the energy of them, seeing a lot of people in the stores, just the excitement that it creates, and of course the business that it brings to these record stores that sometimes I feel, just struggle to get by. So, I try to make it to them, on a monthly basis, but, it's good to see a lot of activity, and sometimes there's bands playing, and I don't know, it's just a good vibe. Overall, I feel a good vibe from it. Now, having said that, I don't typically get out to Record Store Day until around 10 in the morning. I'm not one of these people that lines up in the morning. There's really nothing I want that badly. And I always feel like that's when it's at its most, tense, and the fervor is at its highest, is, 9 in the morning when all the stores open. People are just, got to get that record. So I figure I let all that pass, and then I'll join you all around, at 10 or noon, and whatever's left, and usually there's plenty of stuff left over. I mean, usually by the time I even get out, I think I got to my first store at 10:30 in the morning on Saturday, and I mean, there was still stuff there. It wasn't crazy. And I started in Akron. I'm up here in Cleveland, and I went ahead and started my record shopping in Akron, and then kind of worked my way through the suburbs of Cleveland and then up to Cleveland. Because I know most people that I know start their record store shopping in Cleveland. So the lines are the longest and, up here. So I kind of go the back door, and then I kind of catch all the stores in Cleveland later in the day. And one in particular I caught on Sunday. It's called Record Den in Mentor, and they're known for getting pretty much everything that comes out on Record Store Day, and they get tons of it. I mean, they had, like that Greta Van Fleet thing that came out. They must have had this many copies of it. They get just tons of stuff, so I'm never too worried about, them running out of anything. But who knows, they could have had that Chapter House at 9 in the morning, and it probably went. We'll just see how that works out. So, as usual, I buy a couple of Record Store Day things, depending on what it is that's there and what I want. But a lot of what I buy typically is just stuff from the used bins. That's kind of where I typically go, and or I will go to, look at some of the back stock and just see, some of the newer stuff. So what I picked up was kind of a mix of that. I went to 3 stores. I went to Time Traveler, which is in Akron. And then I went to Square, which is also in Akron. And then a store called The Vinyl Groove, which is in Bedford. All 3 of them get Record Store Day stuff. And they all, and I don't get out to any of those 3 stores very much, just because they're a little bit of a hike for me. So Record Store Day is always kind of fun because it's sort of like revisiting an old friend, So, and then on Sunday I went out to Record Den just to see kind of what they had. So anyway, here's the stuff I picked up that came out on Record Store Day. I got the Poppies collection. I've seen a few people show this. It's a collection of psych rock nuggets from the Vanguard label, typically a folk label in the 60s, and they signed up some psychedelic acts and issued this collection. It comes on red vinyl. See if you can see it there. Boom, red vinyl. And of course it came with a little booklet that tells you, sort of a little bit about the people on it. I knew a couple of the things. I know Buffy St. Marie, her picture you see here. And another one on here I knew, Southwest FOB, The Smell of Incense. I think they were from Houston, Texas. And the song Smell of Incense, I have the 45 of that. I've had it forever and I love it. But I think it was originally done by the West Coast Pop Art Experimental Band. They do a version of it as well. So anyway, those were the only two artists I knew on here. Everything else is completely new to me. So I look forward to playing that. This one, Marty Wilson Piper, he was the guitar player in the Church for, gosh, 10, 20, almost 30 years. Yeah, 30 years. Was it 80s, 90s? Almost 30 years he was. And he left probably, I don't know, late, maybe 2007, maybe? And has been doing his own solo work. And all along, all the members of the Church have done solo albums. And he put this out in 2000, Hanging Out in Heaven. It never came out on vinyl. And I never did get around to buying the CD. So this was a great opportunity to pick this up. And I paid the most for this. This was about 33 bucks. That was something else I noticed. Boy, some of the prices were really high. I know a lot of people have been mentioning that, but boy, it sure was true. There were $35, almost $40 albums that were single albums. I was like, geez Louise. But there you go. Anyway, this is a double. And it is also on color vinyl with some nice liner notes and photographs in there. I figured Marty Wilson Piper, the blue vinyl, would do this correctly. He is a vinyl nut. This guy has a record collection that is insane. And if you ever want to see how it is, he has a site called In Deep Music Archive. Google that. And there's lots of photographs of his record collection. And he writes and reviews a lot of records as well. So terrific record there. And then this one I got, Japan, Quiet Life. I really didn't need this. It's basically the Life in Tokyo and Quiet Life singles combined onto a 10-inch EP. So it's got the sleeve of Life in Tokyo and then Quiet Life with a different, obviously an outtake from the original album sleeve. And it comes on red vinyl on the Areola label. And it has the UK 7-inch and extended version of Quiet Life, which is essentially the album version, I think. I haven't really A-B'd them, but it didn't seem very long to me. And then Life in Tokyo Part 1 and 2, which is the A and B side of the 7-inch that came out. So, nice item to have. I didn't really need it, but it wasn't too expensive. And, you know, it's Japan. I'm a huge fan of them. So, and so those were the only two new records that I got. Or the only three. Those were the only Record Store Day releases I got. Everything else was catalog and back. So, the Vinyl Groove in Bedford, everything from 2018 and back, the leftover stock of Record Store Day releases was all 40% off. So that was fantastic. So I grabbed the first Hawkwind album. I went ahead and got that. And it is also on color vinyl. So I've been kind of picking up Hawkwind stuff as I see it. This is my second album of theirs. I really like this group, and they weren't a band I ever really investigated until recently. So I got that. And then this I had eyeballed last year, but it was just 26 bucks, too expensive for me. I just wasn't. And I already had a couple of the tracks from it. This is a label called Survival Records that came out. It was early 80s, synth, minimal synth, electronic music from Britain. And some of their most well-known acts, and they aren't even that well-known, are Richard Bone, Eddie and Sunshine, and also Drinking Electricity are three of the more notable acts on the label. Everybody else on here I'd never heard. Analysis, The Limit, 13 at Midnight. I didn't know these. So there was enough on here I didn't know, wasn't familiar with to pick it up. And again, it was virtually half price, 40% off. So I went ahead and grabbed it. And it just came on black vinyl. I was thinking it might be on color vinyl, but it's black vinyl. So anyway, I was glad to cross that off my list. And Medical Records has reissued it. And they do a lot of reissues of early new wave material from the 80s. And then a local band, Whacked Wagon. They're kind of a heavy rock outfit. I love them live. They're so fantastic. And the first record store I went to, Time Traveler, had this for 10 bucks, sealed. So I couldn't resist that. And it came with 3D glasses. So good live band, you know, just a good straight-ahead rock band, but with psychedelic tendencies, kind of heavy. The album is called Underground and Passed Around, Whacked Wagon, their third album that just came out. And then Record Den, really, you know, I went out to Record Den in Mentor, the place I was telling you about that has everything, you know, this many Greta Van Fleet albums. There really wasn't anything there that I wanted. I mean, it was all kind of nifty looking, but I didn't really need any of it. But they did have this down, marked down to 10 bucks, Engineer's last album. Well, I don't know if it was their last album, but it was an album they did, I'm looking for a year, 2014. So They may have done one since then, but they're kind of a shoegazy British band that I followed during the 2000s, the early to mid-aughts. I followed them and kind of lost track of them. And so this is an album they did called Always Returning, and it was marked down to $10. So I'm curious to hear what they've been up to. And then, I did go to another store here in Cleveland called My Mind's Eye. And they're another local store, and they typically get a lot of Record Store Day product too. So I hit them on Sunday, and I picked up this release on Dark Entries, one of my favorite new wave reissue labels. And this is an act called Lhasa, L-H-A-S-A, Lhasa, and it's called what is it called? Good grief, Acetabularia Lhasa. Anyway, I got it because it's 6 tracks of new beat music. And new beat was a genre of music I followed in the late 80s that was electronic, made primarily out of Belgium. And it tended to be kind of hard-edged electronica. You know, think, I don't know, it's hard to really describe what new beat is. You almost have to Google it and look it up. But some of the bigger hits were from Lords of Acid was one of the bigger acts to come out of there, and also a Split Second. If you're into the Wax Trax label, you'd probably be into new beat. They picked up a lot of the new beat acts. And then the store in Bedford had this one, Sensations Fix. This is kind of a proggy, dreamy outfit that I don't know exactly where they're from. It's Italian, I believe, and Franco Falsini was in the band, and I have 2 of their albums. So this is one I never did have. It's called Portable Madness, Sensations Fix. This is from the mid-70s, and if you're into progressive electronic krautrock, if you're into that, you might get into these guys. Sensations Fix. And then the last new album I bought was by Outrageous Cherry, Detroit act, very garagey, psychedelic garage act, good hooks. This was the final album that they did, and it's called Meet You in the Shadows. I knew it was coming out, but kind of forgot about it. And I remembered when I was in Square Records in Akron, I was trying to think of anything I wanted, and I was like, oh, I wonder if they have the Outrageous Cherry, and they did. It's out on Burger Records. And unfortunately, their guitar player passed away. His name was Larry Ray, and he passed away just after they finished this album. So this is kind of dedicated to him, and unfortunately, Outrageous Cherry are no more. Although their leader, Matthew Smith, I think is going to continue on doing stuff solo and may form another band. I can only hope. I love this band. I've loved them since the 90s, and just very garagey psychedelic pop with a lot of hooks. Great sense of melody. And then just a couple used things. When I found their one and only album that I know of, this is kind of a pop, 80s pop outfit from Scotland. It features Davey Henderson, and he used to be the singer and leader of a band called the Fire Engines, who were a very scratchy post-punk guitar-based band from the early 80s from Scotland. And if you like Joseph K, anything like that, you would like Fire Engines. Well, Win is the act he formed afterward. A little slicker, but I'm curious to give the album a try. See how that is. And Clark, this is one called Hopeless Cases from the mid-80s. Electronic music with her spoken word poetry over it. Kind of on the dancey side. And rest in peace, Ranking Roger from The Beat, the English Beat. I knew he'd had this album, Radical Departure. I never picked it up. And when he passed away, I was like, well, you know, really would have been curious to hear what he had done on his solo record. So there it was waiting for me, and I picked it up. Ranking Roger, Radical Departure. This comes from 1988. And then another person, rest in peace, Ian Lowry. He was the leader of this band, King Blank. And he'd also been the leader of another band called the Folk Devils and also The Wall. Just mid-80s post-punk, guitar, indie, rock. This is a band, King Blank. I don't know any of their music, actually, so this is my first purchase by them. And then Sade, love Sade, and, you know, it never really occurred to me until a few years back that she, on her 12-inch singles, you get unreleased B-sides. I'm like, wow, how cool. So I found this, Is It a Crime? Real cheap, and it has 2 songs, Wired and Punch Drunk, that are not on the album. So, yay, Sade. And then finally, The Searchers, the English jangly Mersey beat band. They hung around into the 70s and I think early 80s and got more of a power pop sound, signed over to Sire Records. And they released this album in 79. It is called, what is it called? Is it just called Searchers? I think that's all it's called. Yeah, Searchers. So haven't heard this yet, but I'm curious to hear how this went. And then just a couple of 45s, Stanton Miranda. This is a Factory Records outfit. This actually came out on the Benelux label and features Gillian Gilbert and Stephen Morris from New Order, aka the other two, on keyboards and drums. So I thought I'd check that out. Mr. Tambourine Man, it's a cover, sort of a new wave punk rock cover of Mr. Tambourine Man by the FVs, British group. Don't know anything about them. Another one I don't know anything about, but picked it up anyway. It's Zeitgeist. It's called Touch. There it goes. It came out on the Human label, which issues a lot of great post-punk in the UK from the early 80s. The Rumor, this is Graham Parker's backing band who did a lot of records on their own. Try and buy stuff by them whenever I see it. So here's a 45 they released on Stiff, even better. And it's called, what is it called? My Little Red Book. It's a cover of My Little Red Book, the song that Love made famous back in the 60s. And I believe it was written by Burt Bacharach? Let me see. Yeah, Hal David and Burt Bacharach. Glad to know my memory hasn't totally failed me. And then finally, this one, I don't know what it is, but it was cheap. The Warriors, Marshall Time. It's on the Object Music label, which is a post-punk label out of Manchester. And this came out in 1979. Manchester, 79 post-punk. Give it to me. So there you go. Those are my finds for Record Store Day 2019. Again, you know, maybe I'll find that Chapter House record. It would be fantastic if I could, but I won't cry if I never see it in my lifetime. Honestly, I won't. Anyway, hope you all had a great Record Store Day and hope you're all enjoying your purchases. I'm going to hunker down and listen to some of these things and, you know, have a great rest of your week. And I will see you guys in a month or two.